Okay, furthering our look at inking. Remember from last week, we looked at some examples of pretty straightforward inking. Let's get a little bit further into it. Here's an example of a page. If you look at the left, it's roughly penciled by one of the greatest artists in the comic industry, John Buscema. John did what's called breakdowns for this particular sequence. Breakdowns, and you can see him looking on the left, very sketchy, very loose, not a lot of detail figured out. That means that the inker's responsibility is to make these really loose drawings look finished. So if we look to the right, we see Bob McLeod's inking attempt at these pages, and Bob did a phenomenal job. Bob is one of the top inkers in the business. And you can see that he did a lot of things that aren't in the pencils, spotting blacks. Now, all of you have said to me, well, how do I know where to put blacks? And it's all a matter of trying to create a sense of depth. If we look at this panel here, this darkest figure is in the foreground. Middle figure, fairly white. There's a little bit of shadow on him, a little bit of shadow back here, and then a little bit more shadow back here. But that heavy concentration of blacks, remember I told you, take the page and squint at it. The blacks draw your eyes into the action. It's a nice effect down here in Bob's work here, using a little bit of Zipatone. Zipatone is a way to apply gray. It's a mechanical process. In the old days you used sheets of Zipatone. Today we do it digitally, and I'm going to walk you through that. But excellent example here of creating a really solid bit of inking from very loose pencils. Notice too, a lot of textures. So he's got the wood textures in the ceiling here. He's got some stone textures on the wall back here, on the ground. Nice texture on the barrels. Really, what you should be doing is finding work that appeals to you. John Buscema's work, for example, something that should appeal to everybody. And really take a look at the black and white art. Marvel did a great job, and so did DC a few years ago, putting out black and white editions of popular comics. It's a great way to see what the original art looked like. Sometimes when you add in the coloring, it can be a bit muddled. This gives us a purer look at it. Look at the way that Bob handled liquid on the ground. It's got that reflective. So it's a different texture, different technique than the ground. The wall is a similar technique to the ground in this particular instance, but when you get over here into the shadow, he creates a different pattern. So that's how we know that this is the wall, this is the floor. Really, really nicely done. Take a look at another one, also John Buscema, and I believe Bob McLeod inked this, but I'm not sure. This could be John's inks as well. Breakdowns, not a lot of detail. A lot of detail on the page. So look at the way he spots blacks. Look at the way he chooses. So he has black with white with black. White areas sit on black backgrounds. Black areas sit on white backgrounds. That's a nice way to define form and pattern. It's a nice way to draw your eye, to keep what could be a very busy and kind of complex scene, keep it nice and clean and readable. This here is by Sean Murphy, a more recent artist. He's really excellent. A lot of energy in these pages. Hard to show a car chase in comics, not the most exciting medium to work in, but you can see Sean does a really spectacular job here. And I wanted you to look at this because of the Zipatone. The Zipatone is the gray texture that's all throughout. There's a lot of zip in these two-page sequence. Really can add a lot of effect. Much more straightforward bit of inking here by Edward Risso. No real grays. Definitely distinctive blacks and whites. It's a technique. It's a style. I think it's appealing. It depends on personal taste, but this is a nice way of really keeping a clean, neat, very urban kind of style to the work. And again, look at the way he spots blacks. Limited blacks up here. Nice black in the edge of the door frames, the underside of the canopies, the character in black, the cars, and then here we move in, background becomes black. So we have a white, overall white shape with black. We have a character that when he's heavily shadowed, he's in white. If this same face was in all black, we'd probably lose a lot of the detail to it. So it's really nicely done this way. It's a popular style, and it's a more stark black and white. This one here by Michael Cho, another example of stark blacks, whites, and in this case grays. Michael actually doesn't even ink the line in some of the places. So there's no line here, no line here, there's no line here. So if you saw this in pure black and white, you'd see a lot of open figures. That can be done when you're working in black, whites, and grays. And don't be afraid to lose line like that, because your reader will fill in the missing pieces. Really stunning, really striking work. Michael's an exceptional artist. Check out his book, The Shoplifter, if you want to try something non-superhero. When we look at the page itself and we take the grays out, you can see how loose that is. Still works, but you know, Robin's arm might come into question as to exactly where his arm went. Batman's form almost lost. So the grays are really an essential component to this success of this page. Zip tone effect on a pretty straightforward illustration. Love the pattern on the jacket. Choosing one side, this could have been done all in black, but rather it's done with the gray Zipatone. So this is how we do Zipatone using Photoshop. What we want to do is you create a halftone pattern in gray, and that's in your filters. You can also download a gray tone pattern, a halftone pattern. But essentially what you want to do, we're going to create this from scratch. So we have our Hulk illustration here. I want to add some Zipatone to it. So we create a new image, same exact size, add a layer to it, fill it with a medium gray. That's step one. You fill it using the paint bucket tool. Step two, you're going to go to Filter, go to Sketch, go to Halftone Pattern. That's going to create this. This is essentially a halftone pattern. You can adjust the size of the dots, you can adjust the contrast. It will change this preview section here. Once you have it the way you like it, click OK, and it's going to create that shape there. We take the Move tool, and we make sure we're on the layer that has the gray, and we just take it and we drag it on top of the Hulk drawing, which is what this arrow indicates. This is dragging it from one frame to another frame. From there, take the layer, change it to multiply. The original Hulk drawing will be visible underneath the gray dots now, because the gray dots are now multiplied layer. Multiply means it's transparent. It's a photography term when you use multiply, but it just essentially means that you can see underneath the layer. From there, I'm going to position it, and I'm going to use the Move tool to basically choose where the gray is going to fall. So I move the gray into position, making sure it's covering all the parts that I want to cover. I'm going to go to Select, and from there I can use parts of this that I want, and I can get rid of parts that I don't want. I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to make a drawing. You can kind of see the dotted lines around the Hulk here. If this was a live collection, these would be blinking. So I'm going to basically draw a pattern around the Hulk. Then I'm going to go to Select, and I'm going to go to Inverse. And what that's going to do, it's going to select the odd outside areas of the Hulk, and I hit the Delete key, and all those dots around the Hulk are going to disappear. So now, all that's left is the area that I selected. From there, I take the Eraser tool, and I go in and I fine-tune. I erase the areas that I don't want, and I clean it up so that we have just areas on the Hulk that give us that nice pattern tone. It's a nice way to add shadow without adding black. It's a nice way to add gray without using wash. We get more into this in Illustrating 2. In fact, we actually do this lesson over again. But you guys were getting far enough along that I wanted to give you a kind of a taste of it. All right, come on back for the next part, the final part, and